Dalet Amud Beis. Let me see. Okay, middle of a Gemara here. Let's try reviewing it a little bit. Okay, we spoke about halach. What does halach mean? The idea of halach is an exception to the law, potentially an exception to the law of bavametzia. Bavametzia is where you admit half. Halach is where you offer to pay it immediately. So effectively, halach is sort of a quasi admission, because in a certain sense, halach could be understood as effectively a complete denial. Like the example we gave yesterday. Jules asked me for $100. So I say 50 I paid back yesterday, and the other 50 never happened. There's no admission there. It's not that different than 50 never happened, and the other 50, here it is. And I hand him $50. So we said this is a debate between Rav Chia and Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says halach is exempt from shvur, right? Rav Chia says that halach is obligated to make a shvur. And now we're in the middle of a Gemara here, where a guy wrote a very interesting line in a document. He borrows monies, dollars. And the guy says it was $5, and the borrower says it was $3. He makes an oath. The implication here is if it was $2, there would not be an oath would not be necessary. And the reason is because this case is like a halach. Why is it like a halach? Because the document says $2, effectively. The document is only useful for $2. So therefore, when you admit $2, you're not really admitting much. You're really admitting what the minimal amount of the document is. It's like a halach. And the Gemara pointed out it's not quite like a halach. Not quite like a halach. And there could be even if the presumption is correct that if there were two coins, if there were if the guy only admits to $2, there is no oath, it would still not prove the point of Rav Chia. And there could be two reasons why this is different than halach. First of all, over here is because over here it's not called halach because you have a document. As halach is sort of a partial admission, at least in the moment. Over here, because you have a document, it's not called an admission at all. Furthermore, the document is written on property, and we do not make an oath on property.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Wouldn't the admission be if someone only paid back 50 when they were asked for 100? Wouldn't that be the admission? Wouldn't it be
That's a classical admission,
right? Like someone says, "You owe me $100," and they say, "I'll owe you 50," and they say, "Oh, okay." Then they're right. Then they're giving the admission, not the person giving the $50.
So a typical case is the guy admits to owing half, and he's not giving 50. He's not giving the money immediately. Halach is where he admits half and gives the money immediately.
But he admits to only half.
Well, it could be a third or a quarter.
Oh, okay. Okay,
It's
so
not
halach
limited,
isn't
no.
just half. It's
halach means to deliver the admission immediately. So whatever you admit, you pay it immediately. So now the key thing here is as follows. In this case, $2 is written in the document. There's actually a property lien on $2 here, right? Because it's written in the document. You don't make an oath on property. However, if he admits to 3, then he admits to one more that isn't a lien on property, because you can't collect $3 from the document, right?
at least 2, right?
It has to be property. Yeah.
So in other words, whenever there's a document, you can collect property. So this document here is fuzzy, right? Because it says dollars, so you can only collect $2. The third dollar that you admit to, that is not a lien of property. That $3, that's a classical bavametzia, because you can't collect that dollar from property. There's no document on it.
We said something yesterday about generosity. If someone
That was the other opinion. The other opinion says that because it doesn't say in the document, there's no oath because it's considered generosity.
Yeah.
That's sort of debate between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shimon Elazar.
Okay. So it's halach, just paying immediately upon admittance, and the other term you just used.
Which one?
Bavametzia. That one, yeah.
So halach is the concept within the field of bavametzia. Bavametzia is an admission of half. It's a classical example of a biblical shvua, a biblical oath.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. 1 second.
Start taking notes again.
Remember, it's just 6-ish in the morning.
Okay, we're at Iked the Ma'asav Miseifa. About a third of the way down.
First word.
First one line is Kakos. Iked the Ma'asav Miseifa. Some ask from the end. Rabbi Kiva says, "Any other kamesha aveda upotter." Rabbi Kiva says this is like returning a lost object, and you're exempt. It's an act of generosity because the document effectively only says 2. So you add to the document in this case, it's like you found a lost object and you're returning it. You're being very generous. It's not called a bavametzia. Time of Amar Sholosh. Specifically, if you said 3, Hoshtayim, but if you said 2, then Chayev. Then Rabbi Kiva would agree that would be called bavametzia if you admit 2 coins, $2, because $2 is written in the document. The Gemara says, "What do you mean? So, to the contrary, this would seem that Helach is Chayev, according to this version. In other words, we're saying that on 2 coins, Rabbi Kiva would agree that constitutes bavametzia because of the document. Even though, because of the document, that's much closer to Helach. So the Gemara says, even if you said 2, you're also exempt. Rav Shimon Elazar would say that both 2 and 3 potentially would make an oath. And Rabbi Kiva here is only talking about 3 to negate the point of Rav Shimon Elazar. He says that 3 is an act of generosity. With regard to 2, whether or not you'd make an oath, he doesn't give anything. Okay. So the Gemara said, and the Gemara points out something else here. There's another fundamental problem here with Rabbi Kiva's statement. Rabbi Kiva said 3, you're generous. Now let's imagine this. Let's say, like the Gemara asked in the beginning, that according to Rabbi Kiva, you'd be chayav a shvua if you admit to $2. You have to make an oath because of bavametzia. And all of a sudden, 3 is not an act of generosity, right? What does 3 become here? It's a strategic way to avoid an oath, right? Because if I would have to make an oath with 2 coins, so I can make an oath, which I don't want to do because nobody wants to make an oath, or I admit to 3 coins. If I admit to 3 coins, sure, I pay an extra coin, but I'm exempt from an oath.
How is that beneficial to the person not making an oath?
He doesn't want to make an oath.
People don't like making oaths.
No, but he has to pay more.
It's true, but it's a small amount. It's cheaper than denying the whole thing. Then it costs him 2 coins. Now it only costs him 1 coin. These are the Shaim Chayev Bishal Shechi Potter Rabbi Kiva. How would Rabbi Kiva exempt you from an oath with 3 coins? Higher Rumi Kamma Aram. What we would be concerned that the guy is a cheat. So he thinks so if I said 2, I'd have to make an oath. So I'll say 3, and this way I'm all of a sudden generous. And I know I'm exempt from an oath. El Shma must be that Shtaim Nami Potter, that you're actually also exempt from an oath with 2 coins. Oh, a second, hold on. You're exempt, Rabbi Kiva agrees that you're exempt from an oath with 2 coins. What does that send the question? It sends the question back to the opinion that says that Helach is Chayev. Why don't you make an oath with 2 coins? If you make an oath even when there's Helach. Remember, that's a debate. Helach is a debate. It's a question on the opinion that says that Helach, you do have to make an oath. You still have to make an oath. Why is that? So Gemara says back to the same 2 answers we gave before. Because the document effectively says 2, that's a unique circumstance. In those regular scenario of Helach, well, at least you're admitting in the moment. Over here, you're not admitting to anything. You're just admitting to what the document says. It's not called an admission. Right? Because the document says 2. You're admitting to 2. Fine. That's not an admission. Whereas an in-the-moment admission, even if it's only for a moment long, like Jules asked me for 100, I give you 50. I say I owe you 50 and I give it to you. At least it's a momentary admission. Inam, another possibility. You do not make an oath on denying property, and the $2 is effectively a denial of property. Okay, Moshe Marzutra, brother of Nachman. Marzutra, the son of Rav Nachman, the following question: Tanu Kalim v'karkois. Okay, this goes to the question, the point we just started talking about, which is when you start denying property, you do not make an oath on property. So the guy asks for vessels and property. So he admits to the vessels. With kafir b'karkais, he denies the property. Or he admits the property of the kafir b'kalim, but he denies the vessels.
When you say property, you mean immovable property or all property?
Property meaning real estate.
Real estate. Okay, we don't take an oath on it. Why?
Do not make an oath on real estate. We saw it in Kamma. It's a possible. It's a verse.
Tell me
It's a
again
verse.
why we don't.
The verse indicates you do not make an oath.
Okay.
It's actually Yomar somewhere in that pasuk is the extra word. Okay. So in those cases, potter, you're exempt from an oath. Haida mixes karkais, you admit to some of the property. Potter, you're also exempt. Mixes kalim, some of the vessels, chayev. So I say you owe me, vessels and property, right? You say, the property, not true. And the vessels, I owe you some vessels. So you're made to be mixed in the vessels. Right? I say you owe me 5 pots. You say you owe 3. It's a made to mix. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara says, time of the kelim karkois the kalkalavas shvuhi. Hakelim b'kelim, dumi the kelim v'karkois, chayev. 1 second. Okay, now here's the catch with property. Every property, not only do you not make an oath on property, but every property is effectively halach. Why? Because Jules comes to me and says, look, I have 6 lots on Southwest 15th Avenue. They're all mine. And I'd say, well, 3 of them are yours. Well, those 3 of them are now, they're yours, right? You can't move, what do you say? You're going to hand it to you? Obviously, once you know where they are, and I admit, and I'm not kicking you off, then instantly they're returned. Right? Every property effectively is halach. So Gemara is proposing that the Brisa here seems to point out that the main idea of property here is that is not halach, but it's that we don't make an oath on property. So should we construct a similar scenario where Jules comes running for his 5 pots? I say, oh, I only have 3, and here they are, which is a similar situation. Because, like we said, every property is halach. Then we would make an oath. We see from here that halach, it's chayev. Halach, you must make an oath. Gemara says, no, loy. No. If Jules asked me for 5 pots, and I said, there's only 3, and here they are. No oath. So then why doesn't the Mishnah mention that as an example? Okay. The key idea of this Mishnah is actually not even to talk about an oath on property. It's to tell you something else, which is the concept of Gilgul Shvua. Remember that. It's going to come up a lot in Bava Metzia. Gilgul Shvua. What does Gilgul Shvua mean? Rolling on an oath, piling it on. Once you make an oath, you make 100 oaths. There's no limit to how much oaths the guy can make you make.
So your wild oaths.
What?
So your wild oaths.
Yes. Okay. So it's Gilgul Shvua. Not only that, even though typically speaking, you don't make an oath on property, but through Gilgul Shvua, you could make an oath on property. Eric, you hear what we're saying? Even though you don't make an oath on property, but through the process called Gilgul Shvua, piling it on, I could force you to make an oath on property. So, for example, when we do a mud mix, if you ask me for 100, I admit 50. I have to make an oath on the 50, and then you can pile on, all your property stories, all the real estate you think I stole from you. You could pile all those oaths on.
That's interesting.
Utensils and land or property?
Utensils are not property,
Okay, we're not.
but land is property. Real estate. Property means real estate.
Tell me what that's called again, the oath?
Gilgul Shvua. An oath is called a Shvua. The piling it on method is called Gilgul Shvua.
Is that proposed or enforced by the person making the oath, or from an outside, from the people requesting the oath?
So the guy who requests, once you're entitled to request an oath, then you can request any oath on anything that ever happens.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara says, "My Kamma, if that's the point of the brayso, so we already know that. Tanina, we already have a brayso. Okay, basically, movable items, items that don't have responsibility, meaning that there is no lien on them, there would be anything that moves, can connect property that is fixed, real estate, to make an oath on it. So Gemara says, you're right, Hocha Iker, the brisa we just mentioned is the main brisa. Hasam Agav Gror Nos, over there it's mentioned as a side point. Okay, Lamanda Amar Helach Potter, according to the opinion that says Helach is exempt. It's a very good question. Why do I need a verse to tell me that you never make an oath on property? You never would make an oath on property anyway, because property is always Helach. So the Gemara says, well, not always.
Of course.
It's a cry. Halach would be if you say that here's this property, these 6 lots, they all have houses, and I say, okay, well, 3 of them I agree to and take them. I don't have to tell you to take them; they are yours, effectively. What happens if those three houses that I admit to, I bulldozed them yesterday? There's nothing left. Well, it's not the same thing anymore, right? It can't say halach. Imagine if you ask me for $100, I say, well, I owe you 50, and here's a shredded 50. Doesn't count, right? It's useless. Okay, I don't know, maybe you get a new 50 with a shredded 50, whatever it is. I give you the way they shred it in the Federal Reserve. It's like literally shredded. Confetti, exactly. The confetti, it's useless. Okay, so tomorrow's it's a cry. If I dug pits or I bulldozed the house, then obviously there's no the house isn't being returned as is. There's no halach. Inami, another possibility is the ton of kelim kakais, the kakais. Another possibility is where I completely deny all property, but I admit to the vessels. In that case, we need the verse to tell there's no halach because I'm denying the property. But we need a verse to say that, well, denying property does not constitute the ground to make an oath. It's a pun intended, right? Not constitute the grounds to make an oath. You can't require an oath because of a denial of property, even if there's an admission in vessels. This has nothing to do with halach again, because over here I'm denying the property. I'm not admitting to it. Tashma, another example. We saw this a very interesting scenario. So the classical example until now, just so we don't get confused. If you're a watch, I'm a watchman, right? And you entrust in me your mug, and I claim it was lost. According to the traditional opinion, I make an oath. That's exactly how we learned for, virtually all of time, the exception for one Gemara in Bava Kamma, and now we get to that Gemara again. Tani Ram Chama. All of these watchmen, they need to also have Maidim Mitzvahs. It's very interesting. All these watchmen need to have Maidim Mitzvahs, partial admission.
Okay.
So Eric gives me three cups. I say one was returned, one was stolen, and the other one was lost.
Okay.
So I'm admitting that I gave you back one. Oh, I'm sorry, and one I still owe you. So one I returned, one was lost, one I still owe. So that's a partial admission. Okay, and this is all 4 types: Shemachinam, an unpaid watchman, Shala borrower, Naisasachar, a paid watchman, Vaseicha, a renter. Hechidami, what's the scenario? Lav da Amar Helach. Presumably, if he's admitting half, what does that mean? He's admitting, there are 2 items, one was lost, one of them I'm gonna return to you. And presumably he gives it to him. He returns it immediately. Because remember, he's a watchman. He has no right to spend the items. Right? A borrower of money can spend the money. A watchman has no right to spend. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. There was no halach. The Amar Lay, he says to the guy, Gimel Paras Sartilach. I gave you the victim here, the original owner, says I had 3 cows. And they all died from your negligence. The Amar Lay, and the guy says, no. Chada, 1 cow, loy hayud dvar me'aylam. Keyword to remember, loy hayud dvar me'aylam, abbreviated in the yeshivas as lo hadam. Loy hayud dvar me'aylam, meaning a complete denial. One of them, I never got 3, I only got 2. The chada meitza ba'aynis, 1 died by accident. The chada meitza b'pshia, and 1 died intentionally. The be'ina shlumalach, and I need to pay him. The lav helachum. There's no helach there. In other words, if I admit to being guilty and having to pay for it, well, then I have to pay for it. I'm not immediately giving the money. Until now, we thought that I'm admitting that the item is still in my possession. if it's still in my possession, even if I don't give it to you immediately, it's still halach. Because in the case of a watchman, where I'm admitting to you that I'm still a kosher watchman and still in my possession, I haven't stolen it yet. It's still in your domain. You still own it, so it's effectively halach. So that's why we have to come to a scenario where the cow dies, but I admit fault. So now I'm obligated to pay money. I haven't paid it immediately. Tashma, another example. The Tani Avua, the Rav Afturiki or the Rav Chia, the father of Rav Afturiki says to Rav Chia, Rav Chia Kamma, so the first Rav Chia, okay, this is the case of Rav Chia, the case we kicked off 2 days ago with. What happens? Jules says to me, you owe me $100. I say, no, I don't. And what happens? We have Eric and Hill, they testify that I actually owe you 50. Right? This is not a mighty bavametzia, it's not admission of half, but I would think that you make an oath. Remember, Rav Chia previously says you do make an oath, but it was a debate. We had a major debate about this. We spoke about this at Cleveland Shabbos and on Sunday, whether or not you make an oath in this scenario or not. You only make an oath on your own personal admission, not on the testimony of witnesses that, so to speak, testify that you owe half.
That's important.
What?
That's important.
Yeah. So the Gemara says. So the Gemara is asking from this brisa on Rav Chia. Rav Chia says that you would make an oath in this environment. And what's the resolution? You're asking a question on Rav Chia. Rav Chia Tanahu Polig. Rav Chia is a Tana, and he can disagree. He can disagree with the brisa. Rav Chia, by the way, was a student of Rebbe. So clearly in the generation of the Tanam, at least the later half of that generation, but still eligible to disagree with them.
Rebbe is Rabbi Yehudah.
Rabbi Yehudah, yeah. So Gemara says, "V'akrok they have a verse." So the Gemara says that the debate on how to interpret that verse. Ahu l'mayde mixes a taina. Rav Chia says that type of oath, that admission, refers to mayde mixes a taina, meaning that you have to admit half of the argument. So, for example, Jules says I owe him $100, and I say no, I don't, and the witnesses say I actually borrowed from him a bushel of wheat. Everyone agrees there's no oath there, even because the admission is not on what the claim is. Even the testimony is not on the claim. It's a different claim that I not only does Jules say I owe him money, I also owe him wheat. Okay, it says the word who and the word zeh. What does that teach me? Two things. One is that I have to admit to the argument. Right, Jules says 100, I say 50, or according to Rav Afturiki, the witnesses say 50. And the other one is and the other one is that if the witnesses say 50, there's no oath. Okay, V'idach and Rav Chia says that there is an oath when the witnesses testify. Mimin hataina. 1 second. Okay, that the admission, according to Rav Chia, number one is we learn that Maida Mixus makes an oath, and number two that the oath has to be from the claim. Right? You claim that I owe you wheat, and I admit barley. That does not constitute an admission. And according to Rav Afturiki, you do not have to admit the same variety that I am demanding. So in other words, if Jules asks for wheat and I admit barley, according to him, there would be an oath.
That's barley an admission at all.
The Savar like Rabbi Gamliel, the Tnan, he holds it like Rabbi Gamliel, that says Tanu chitim hayla b'sa'ir and potter Rabbi Gamliel machayev. The lender asks for wheat and the borrower admits to borrowing. You're exempt from an oath. However, Gamliel says you are obligated to make an oath. Okay, story time. Hahu Raya, there was a shepherd. To have a master like Kol Yom Echevasa. Every day they'd give him animals. Besahadi with witnesses. Presumably they did not trust him. While they gave it to him with witnesses. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. One day there were no witnesses around, so they didn't give him with witnesses. Let's say what happened at the end of the day. Amr Lahu, he says to them, you never gave me cattle to watch. Okay. Also, Sahadi, so witnesses came along and said, I claim to have given him a herd of sheep, and turns out he ate 2 of them for his own personal pleasure. So what's the story? Well, if we go with Rav Chia, he should have to make an oath. 1 second. There's another fundamental problem here. The guy denies the whole story, right? Now, what's happening? We know he's a liar. So why are we making him make an oath? He's a liar. He's a liar.
Stuck on, you get it on record, I guess, is that, I'm guessing here.
So we'll get there. We'll get there. Vagazlanu, he's a thief, and a thief is, in this case, he's a real thief. We'll explore this in more detail now. That's really the next. What we're learning now is sort of who is. So it's complicated, right? Like we can have a street liar, and we say that perjury actually means something to him, right? But once you have a perjured liar, their testimony in court doesn't mean much, right? It's very common in court. There's been a number of very public court cases in recent years, without going into too many details. But in many cases, when somebody who's committed perjury many times before comes to court, nobody really listens to him. What does it mean, right? You're a liar. So the sort of complicated question is, at what point, how do you escalate to who is Shavua an escalation for, even though they might be street liars, but they wouldn't make a false Shavua. This guy here is a thief of property. He's not a thief of a loan. He stole property. He stole something that he was obligated to return as is. He was entrusted with sheep. He was supposed to return the sheep. He lied about it and stole 2 sheep. Why are we making him make an oath? So Gemara says, you're right. The thief wouldn't make an oath because we don't trust him anymore. The original owner, the one who entrusted him with the herd of sheep, the original owner would make the oath, and he would collect from the thief. Remember, typically speaking, the proper way to make an oath is always that the oath exempts you, except if the victim is if the one who's supposed to swear is not trustworthy. In that case, the other guy has to make the oath. This is called shekenegdai. The party that will make the oath here will take. So Gemara says, Hashtanam and Lester of Chia and Nechayvim Rav Nachman. So Gemara says, okay, well, even if you don't make an oath because is a rabbinical oath, it's still somewhat in play today. Usually you won't make one, but occasionally the court can obligate a shvus hesses today. It's a rabbinical oath, so it does not have the severity of a biblical oath. What is it? It's the denial of a claim. And the sort of idea is that nobody would make a claim without some sort of justification. And therefore, if you're going to deny the claim, we're not going to collect, but we're going to require you to make an oath, a shvus hesses. So the Gemara says that even if you don't make an oath because of Rav Chia, meaning this is not a scenario of bavametzia, but let's make a shvus hesses, right? The original owner entrusts the herd to the shepherd. He should be able to require the shepherd. He should be able to require the shepherd to make an oath. And Chaim and Rav Nachman, the Tanam we learned, Monali b'yedecha ein lecha b'yadi potter. You're exempt. For Rav Nachman says that should be nice as shvus hesses. You make a rabbinical oath. The Gemara says, Rav Nachman, tekanto, loy avdinan. Okay, the key point of Rav Nachman here is that because the shepherd here is clearly a thief, a shvuas hesses, meaning a shvuas hesses is a shvur to deny a claim. Whenever you deny a claim, you make a shvuas hesses. It's a rabbinical oath. But only the defendant will make the oath. Only the defendant will make the oath. Even if the defendant is not reliable, there's no oath. So we wouldn't flip the oath and say, well, defendant can't make an oath. So you know what? The claimant has to make the oath instead and take the money. No, it doesn't work that way. There's no oath. Okay, so Gemara says, typically the Havli Roya, the Omer Yehudah Stam Roya Apostle. Okay, hold on. We have another problem here. All shepherds are thieves. Okay, if you're a shepherd, don't take too much offense here. Okay, I'm not sure anyone here is a shepherd, but it takes so much offense. But the sort of idea is that a guy who's a shepherd, like, what do you think he does for a living? He steals people's property effectively. Where does he take his herds?
To graze somewhere.
To graze somewhere. Where is that somewhere?
Aren't all of our
Exactly.
All of our avos are.
Well, we'll get to it.
Right.
Hold your horses. Yeah.
Hold my shit.
Quite literally, or the sheep.
Don't
Exactly.
touch the sheep.
Simara says like kasha. it's not difficult. Hadi day, hada alma. It depends whose sheep he's shepherding. His own sheep, if he shepherds his own sheep, then it's problematic. If he shepherds other people's sheep at the edge of the city, then he does not steal property. In other words, his own sheep, he gets the incentive, right? If he steals with his own sheep, then if he grazes his own sheep and steals people's property, then he benefits from it. But if he grazes other people's sheep, like what are they paying him for? He doesn't really gain from the thievery, so therefore he doesn't do it. He doesn't graze other people's sheep on stolen property. How can we even give our sheep to a shepherd? The verse states, in front of a blind person, don't put a stumbling block. Meaning, if the guy is so tempted to steal, don't tempt him with more stealing. The general rule is the person does not sin and not derive benefit from it. Because if it's his own sheep, so he gets the benefit of grazing in other people's fields, he'll do it. But for other people's sheep, why would he do it? He doesn't derive the benefit. It's not his sheep. Okay. Now, to answer you about the avos, they were shepherds that were outside of the city, either shepherding other people's sheep, or in the case of their own sheep, they had their own property too. Okay. Each one makes an oath that they have less than half. This is so they're both grabbing onto the talus, right? Each one makes an oath they don't have less than half. Now this is a little complicated. What does it mean you have less than half? Let's say I have nothing. Do I have less? Is it true that I do not have less than half? It is. Right? Because I don't have anything at all. Right. Now, let's say I have a third of the item. Is that true or not?
There's less than half.
I make an oath that I do not have less than half. I only own a third of it.
It's false.
It's false. So we have a little bit of problem here, right?
Because he's a third.
Because I have third.
Right.
I do have less than half. So let's say we have his big blanket, okay? And me and you are grabbing it. So I quickly grab it, I stuff it into my hands, and I roll up 3/4 of the blanket. And you doing the same thing, you only get 1/4 of the garment. So now you can't make an oath, and let's say we do this simultaneously. So I acquire 3/4, you acquire 1/4. You can't make an oath that you don't have less than half, because you do have less than half. Let's say, however, you're standing on the sidelines, you watch this event, and then at some moment you ask me to give you directions, I'm middle pointing, and you grab half the thing. Half the blanket. So in that case, you don't own anything. But you could make an oath that you don't have less than half because you don't have anything at all. You see the problem running in here?
Not the half of it.
Okay, so that's the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Al de islay mishtaba, al de lesle mishtaba." Am I making an oath that I don't have less than half? No, that would allow a total cheat to make the same oath too. So I have to make an oath that it belongs to me as well. So Gemara says, yeah, you have to do both. He has to make two oaths, a two-part oath. Is shvua sheyeshli ba. The first thing is, I have a portion of it, and that portion is not less than half. And not less than half. Why can't he make an oath that the whole thing belongs to him? Gemara says, are we giving him the whole thing? No. So therefore, he shouldn't make an oath that is clearly not going to happen. Let him make an oath that half of it belongs to me. Why are we making this weird oath that not less than half? Make an oath that half it's mine. Gemara says, no, Marla Dibura, it doesn't look good, right? The guy says the whole thing is mine, and then he says, oh, I'm making an oath that half is mine. Not quite the same thing. So Hashtanami Marla, Gemara says, Hashtanami Marla Dibura, Domer Kula Shali. So Gemara says, well, over here also, he's still not making an oath on the whole thing. He's making an oath that he doesn't have less than half. So it's not really such a good response. So the Gemara says, and according to the argument, why are we making an oath in the first place? Both of them are grabbing half the garment. So why are we making this oath if they don't have less than half? Or they're holding half. So just give them half. Why do they need to make an oath? So Rav Yehudah explained. We saw Rav Yehudah previously. Shvu is it's a rabbinical enactment. we shouldn't have a guy standing on the sidelines that runs in and steals the garment. So to prevent that, we make him make an oath, but we have a major problem here. 1 second. So why are we making an oath? Because we have a guy standing on the sidelines that's going to take advantage of the situation. If that's the case, the guy's a liar. And how does an oath help? If he's going to lie about the money, well, effectively he's a thief here. He'll lie about the oath too. So Gemara says, that is an incorrect statement. We don't have, that rule is not correct. A guy could be a robber, but he'd still be afraid to lie under oath. And this is really what we're going to deal with. We'll start it now and we'll continue tomorrow. Again, amrina or loy amrina. Do you say because a guy will steal, he also will lie under oath? Or do you say no, he'll steal, but he won't lie under oath? Okay. So Gemara says loy amrina. That's not a correct statement. A guy who will lie for money will lie also under oath. Is incorrect, meaning that a guy who will steal money will not lie under oath. So Gemara says, because if you're not going to say this, the Torah says that a guy is bavametzia, he admits half, has to make an oath. 1 second, if the guy's a liar about the money, then how does making an oath make a difference? The guy will lie about lie under oath too. Must be because it's not true. People will lie about money, but not lie under oath. So Gemara says, no, that isn't correct either. Because we established, what's the real reason why a makes an oath? Because he really intends on repaying. He's sort of fuzzing the numbers here, right? He's cooking the books. He's trying to delaying the repayments. He's not really a thief. So he's not a choshed amayna. He's not suspect for money because he's not a thief at all. He's doing delaying tactic like Rabba, like we explained previously. The Amar Rav, the Amar of Idi, Rav and Amar of Chiz, the Hakayfer b'milva kosher le'edus. Somebody who denies alone is still kosher for testimony. Why is this? Because he intends on repaying it in the future. However, Hakayfer b'pikadin posel le'edus. Somebody who denies that he was entrusted with an item, that guy is not kosher for testimony, because that guy is clearly a thief. A guy who denies a loan, he's just delaying. He's going to pay back later. But a guy who denies an item that was entrusted, he's clearly a thief. We don't trust him, and he has to. He would not be able to make an oath either because he's a liar. All right, and we'll continue. We'll continue this tomorrow. Okay. Have a great day.
This keeps getting more and more
Eventful.
and more.
Yeah. This is it.